Hey guys, welcome to our YouTube channel. We've been having a great time bringing you all our Practice Like a Pro episodes, starring yours truly, Linnea Rook. And we're really stoked to bring you some new stuff as well. We've got some travel episodes coming up, and also we're going to do some myth busting.
Yes,
we right?
are. Some common misconceptions about mountain bike technique.
That's right. So we're going to kind of break down why we teach you what we teach you. We get a lot of questions about other ways of doing things, and we want to talk about when those are applicable and appropriate and when they're not. So stay tuned. All right, so we get a lot of questions about drops. I know a lot of times when I'm teaching people how to drop properly, they say, oh, well, I learned this, or I saw this online. So we're going to talk about some of their common misperceptions about drops and some of the ways people drop and when they're correct and when they're not, right? So we teach a technique called correct basic form, where we're just making a hip shift coming off the drop. We get a nice soft landing with this. We see a lot of people here, a lot of little kids like boosting off this drop, landing super hard. And that's because they're either pulling up off the drop or they're preloading off the drop. Now, these things aren't necessarily wrong. They're situational. I might preload off a drop when I need distance. The problem with preloading off a drop, as you know, is that we're not going to be able to make an upcoming turn.
And you land really hard.
And you land really hard. So we're not going to be able to land and control our landing into a turn. We're going to have to like bounce once before we get control of the bike.
Right. The other thing we see is a lot of people pulling up off drops, and that's really just not a functional thing to do. Even if we need distance, we'd want to press down and preload. So we're definitely not going to pull up off drops. The third thing we hear about or see people doing is pushing forward off drops. And I think this really comes because, people are teaching this because a hip shift rearward looks a lot like a bar push. The problem with the bar push is it's not going to pull the bike back underneath me. So the really simple concept of that rearward hip shift creates pressure in the fronts of the hands and puts the bike right underneath us. Right.
Puts us right back over our bottom bracket when we land. On big drops, what's going to happen is you're going to get all the way extended and you're going to start rotating forward. On smaller drops, we're pushing the bike away and we're not going to have a way to land over our bottom bracket and land over our pedals. So we want to make sure we're using this correct basic form to bring the bike back underneath us. Now, pushing forward is appropriate and applicable in kind of those oh crap moments where you're about to roll off something really slowly and you realize it's a drop and you need to push the bars forward. So, it's a useful technique, but it's not a go-to.
And then the other thing I think is a common misconception is how your tires should land.
Yeah.
I see a lot of people landing really flat
Mhm.
and with their tires at the same time, but it's a harsher landing.
Yeah, we're going to get a lot softer landing if the front wheel lands a little bit first and the rear wheel chases it. That's because when we land with the front tire slightly first, it starts to roll, so we don't get deceleration from both wheels at the same time.
So you don't get that like slam.
Yeah, you don't get that kind of like pancaking down.
Mm-hmm.
The other thing about it is we can't really control our bike until our front wheel lands. Like we can't start to turn until the front wheel lands, right?
Interesting.
So if we're landing on the back wheel or we're landing on both tires, if we had landed where the back tire would land in this situation, if we had put the front tire down there, we could actually control the bike into a turn a lot better.
Mm-hmm.
So in summary, we want to make sure we're making this nice hip shift, bringing the bike back underneath us for a nice soft landing, able to get ourselves into terrain nice and smoothly. We want to avoid preloading unless we need distance. We want to avoid pushing on the handlebars just to make sure that we can land back over the center of the bike and that we don't get pulled forward in the air. Unless we're rolling very slowly off something that we need to get the front wheel out in front of us on.
Mm-hmm.
In that case, we might push forward. So we're going to really try to make sure that we're using proper technique on drops and staying safe on the bike.